But anyway, yeah, we want to get into we're gonna go into some spoiler
Sure.
territory now, all right? We're gonna go into some spoiler territory right now. I think you and I had the exact same moment with this film when we're like, okay, we get it. We definitely know what he's trying to say, and that
there was a point where I was like, I get it.
Yeah.
Earlier on in the movie, when because hearing about how crazy this is, I was sitting there going, I gotta pay attention to everything.
Yeah.
And so early on, I was like, is this just one big Bible metaphor?
Yeah.
And I don't know exactly where, but yeah, eventually, I think we definitely had the same, I get it. moment.
Yeah.
Like, I understand, move.
Yeah, I mean, to kind of explain, all we'll give you is like our interpretation of what it all is about, really. Because at the end of the movie, after it's gonna be just so funny. No one's ever seen the movie, and they're just gonna stick around for our spoiler part. The end of the movie, after they kill Jennifer Lawrence's baby, all the crowd of people inside of the home.
It's the sound of humanity.
Yeah, and then Jennifer Lawrence burns the entire home down.
Thank God. I've never wanted to watch somebody stab people with glass.
Because I kept thinking there are biblical references in this movie. Because halfway through the film, when Jennifer Lawrence gets pregnant. And then she eventually, when he writes his book, he writes the Bible. That's what Javier Bardem writes, or something. Yeah, it's the Word of God, is what he's put down.
Javier Bardem is essentially God.
He's essentially God, because by the time Jennifer Lawrence burns the whole place down and she's still breathing, he says the words "I am," and that's such a Christian thing. Is "I am." If you go through the Bible, anytime God's talking or Jesus is talking. And it says "I am." It's capital I, capital A, meaning like it's a pronoun. Is that the right word, pronoun? Or I forgot.
Proper.
My bad. Yeah. Pronouns totally different. Yeah.
Pronouns are he, she, it, they.
Yeah. It's proper, and so that's a very big Christian reference. It seems slight, but it really is an important factor.
If you go in with the Bible in mind, you'll find all kinds of things.
And that's what I found fascinating about the interpretation I was feeling with this movie, because a lot of the time I was watching this movie going, what the hell's going on in this movie? And then by the time I got to that point, I was like, everything makes sense.
Yeah. Which is interesting to see so much debate about, like, does this movie mean anything? I'm like, well, yeah, clearly this dude read the Bible.
Yeah, no, it's the movie covers the entire Bible, and I feel like that ending makes it very clear. The beginning is, Javier Bardem and Jennifer Lawrence. And like you were saying, how the cast of characters, man, woman, man is Ed Harris.
Man,
woman
is the first guy to show up. He's Adam. And then his companion shows up a couple scenes later. And then their two sons arrive who are having a squabble. And one kills the other.
One kills the other, like how he killed...
One bludgeons him with a small fucking...
Like how The Rock was when Cain killed Abel.
Exactly.
Yeah, and... So that happens, and then eventually when she's pregnant, she's like the Mother Mary, and the second and there's like other biblical references going on.
She's like Mother Mary, and she's also kind of like Earth,
Yeah, I think that's why it's called Mother. Yeah, Mother Mary, Mother Earth. And, there's like stuff that's happening here where it's like, it seems like Javier Bardem is consumed with fame and wanting to please people, and you see he loves people, and then... But then by the time it gets to the end, you're like, oh, Javier Bardem is Darren Aronofsky's own personal point of view of who God is.
Yeah, kind of.
This person who wants to serve people and have people love him and worship him, and then when these people feel that for him, terrible things come out of humanity. Humanity wants to steal and kill. And
gotta have a piece of it. Gotta prove I was here. Like, it is a pretty nihilistic
It's pretty clear. Even the house turns into a war zone at one point,
Yeah, well, and people, there's at one point where like a big rave starts, and it's like, they're partying and fucking...
The lust.
They're partying and having sex and graven images.
The house becomes like all 7 deadly sins. and like in the matter of like 15 minutes towards the end of the movie.
And reality starts to break and bend, and that's really cool,
But then also when, Jennifer Lawrence finally gives birth to the baby and they all start bringing gifts, I looked to my girlfriend, I was like, oh, the baby's Jesus. I get it.
See, I picked that was the moment where I was like, okay. Like, I was... Earlier on in the movie, I was like, this has got to be biblical. And then, when they brought gifts to the door, I was like,
Yeah, it's totally Jesus.
There you go.
It's totally Jesus. There we go. Yeah.
And they even wait days. You know, they're in here in this little room for days. And I'm like, okay.
Yeah,
like,
it's 100% the Bible. That's what it is.
This is the nihilistic view at what an outside view of biblical faith and what it does to humankind.
Yeah, and that's probably the more fascinating part to me, because a lot of times you see films that do like Jesus metaphors here and there, which most of the time in a movie it's like some superhero is dying and then he puts his arms out. Oh, he's Jesus sacrificing himself for the people. And here it was more of like the Joseph and Mary and God part. Yeah.
It's a lot of
a lot of Bible stories.
A lot of Javier Bardem going, "I'm with you, but I'm not."
Yeah.
And it's just
like God,
frustrating.
Like, I think what you were saying in the car was how like it's like Darren Aronofsky's point of view of God being like, I want people to love me, but I'm not going to be there for you when you need me.
Yeah, know? It's like, I'm not qualitatively here. You're kind of on your own in this chaotic mess.
Yeah.
Do what you will.
And like people, and you know, the fact that he finishes his book and then people start worshiping him, this is like the Catholic interpretation, I feel. Not just a Christian, because Catholicism's very specific. Well, spit just came out there. Catholicism's very specific about Mary, Mother Mary. And I really feel that Jennifer Lawrence's character is a very big picture of that.
Yeah,
you know?
Yeah, totally.
Because I feel like in just regular Christianity, it's not as much worship about Mary. It's like she's an important figure, but I don't think they view her as a holy figure. And in this movie, it's like, yeah, she is the holy figure of the Mother Mary. And so yeah, when the house is all going crazy, it's all starting making. There's even one point, even before the first half, when she goes down into the cellar and then a frog comes leaping out.
Yeah.
Those kind of things I'm not a big fan of. When it's like, I get it.
It's
so Bible, you know.
And there are a lot of very like vaginal visual references to things like rotting slits and stuff and holes that keep appearing that are either black or bloody.
Yeah.
You know, there's a lot of hint to just being barren.
Yeah.
And I also, just a little nugget, I believe that's Rachel Weisz's face that starts the movie off.
Oh, really?
Yeah, because I was like, oh, different face. Because I was sitting there in the first shot going, is that Rachel Weisz? And then, you know, the movie starts, and then you have that Jennifer Lawrence moment where she wakes up all messed up and bloody in the single teardrop, and I'm like, oh, cool. Okay. So the earlier version of this movie starred Rachel Weisz and Javier Bardem. And the next version of this movie stars whoever that actress at the end is and Javier Bardem.
Oh, really? It wasn't Jennifer Lawrence who wakes up out of the bed and goes, baby.
Nope.
Really?
Different face.
Oh, I did not notice that. I did not notice that. So I guess my question to maybe you have an answer, because the one thing I don't get is it's like the destruction.
This is a loop.
It's a loop. Yeah, it's the Matrix.
Yeah. Yeah, it is.
Yeah, it is. It is. An architect is the god of
you take it to its logical conclusion, then you burn it down and you start again.
Yeah.
You know.
So,
and that's what creativity is like.
What's the biblical interpretation of that, though? Of like, you know, he pulls out the love, like, okay, yeah, I get it. Like, they burned the whole house down. She's consumed in darkness. The beginning, there was darkness, and then he brings light out of her, bringing light into the world. But why the recreation process?
That's, I don't know as well, you know, that, because Christianity kind of teaches you, like, oh, you do this one earth thing, and then you die, and you go either to the fiery pit, or you go to the cloud city.
Yeah.
So I don't really know how that fits into that
how the recreation
school of thought, but I just feel like, this is just another one of his creations, because the thing is, if you think about the Bible, if you think about the book of Genesis, why would God just create one? You know, why would he sit here and be like, cool, all this omnipotent power I have, I'm done. You know, one Earth, we're good. So I just feel like,
there's only life on this Earth, by the way.
Yeah. So God becomes, at least by this movie's standard, God becomes like a frustrated artist who needs to get it out, and finally does, and gets absorbed by people's admiration.
Yeah.
And meanwhile, he kind of leaves his rock to fend for itself, basically.
Yeah, I see. That's the fascinating part, because I feel like when I think of plot, I get all the metaphors. I get most of it, at least. But I feel like if I rewatch it, I'd be like, oh,
it'll come to
I
life
see even more details now of how it's linked.
And the way people behave will also change. Because, you know, like, Javier Bardem for most of the movie is very, like...
Yeah.
Is very warm and reassuring, and a couple times he gets very wrathful. But even when he's not... being there or helping at all. He still has that kind of light aura about him. He seems kind of pixelated the whole movie.
I mean, some of it's like super on the, like when they kill the baby.
Oh yeah.
They kill the baby, they're eating the baby, eating the body of Christ.
Yeah.
And then immediately Javier's like, we have to forgive them. You know?
Yeah. Like,
super on
they
the nose.
love it. They love it. And it is like, you do start to, it is an interesting filter through which to view faith and view God, because you do start to wonder about these principles from a different direction. It's a dark direction for sure. But it is interesting to think about.
It is, yeah, it's a fascinating piece of material, and at least that's just what the interpretation we got from it.
Yeah, and like I said, if you're a creative type of any kind, I think there are parallels you can easily draw and relate to in this, just because there is so much, like, even the story of God and the earth and everything is a story about a guy creating something.
Yeah.
And seeing how that plays out.
Well, I've heard many people talk about how being a creative person is the closest connection we have to God. Yeah. Because God is a creator, so when we create, that's the closest tie we have to God. So I get that. Yeah, it's a neat. I just don't think it's as like.
It's not.
I don't think it's as hard to interpret as people make it out to be.
It's not as impenetrable as I was expecting.
Yeah.
It didn't leave...
I feel like The Fountain is harder to figure out than this movie is. Yeah.
Yeah, it's like if you know the touchstones and you start to pick them up, I think you'll understand it. Unless there's a second, deeper hidden meaning that I don't get. But
yeah, because there's stuff. I mean, like there's stuff about where at first I was interpreting it as fame and all that. Like, oh, the struggle with fame and power and wanting the people's approval to love them, and then or about like when's the limit of letting people into your personal life too much when you're becoming a famous artist. But then eventually, by the time the movie ends, you're like, oh, that's just God, is Darren Aronofsky's point of view of God and how he deals with people. you know?
I mean, you can shrink that example down and make it about pretty much anything creative. But also, I was wondering,
that's part of the beautiful thing about this movie.
Yeah, is it's not only that one thing. It's just that surprisingly, the key metaphor is pretty strong and pretty bold. But also, I was picking up hints of like just ruminations on motherhood and children, because the thing is, like, everyone in this movie except for Jennifer Lawrence and kind of Javier Bardem behaves like a child. Everybody has no regard for anybody else. Everybody does what they want and assures everybody that it's fine.
Yeah.
And, you know, that made me start to think about her, like, before she even becomes a mother in this movie, it started making me think about that, about the handful and the emotional tax that is, and that the couple scenes where she's like, I just want to be alone with you. I just want to have a minute, you know, to ourselves, and yeah. So there's a lot to draw on, for sure.
Well, it's a fascinating movie. Highly recommend you watch it. If you have seen Mother, if you didn't watch It this weekend, or if you didn't watch It again this weekend,
double feature.
If you saw Mother, which I think is a movie you'll talk way more about than It, I would love to hear what you guys have to say in the comment boxes. Like, what did you think about it? What are your interpretations on it? Do you agree with what we interpret it as? What deeper meanings can you find there? Put your comments down below. This is that movie where you're like, yeah, fucking comment. You know?
Please,
we gotta hear what people are thinking about this movie, because. And hey, kudos to Darren. Even though like the big consensus of this film is not like from the general population, it's not like unanimously loved. I love that people are talking about it.
Oh yeah. And a lot of the time, a divisive film is
it's art.
Yeah, it's like
art.
I would rather a movie be divisive than just fine.
Yeah,
you know, and that's a big achievement right there. This is a movie that I don't know how I personally feel about it, but I think I commend Darren Aronofsky and the crew, that everybody who put this together, for doing a bang-up job with the material.
For sure.
You know?
Yeah. Oh yeah. All right, guys. Well, thanks for watching our review of Mother. You can subscribe to The Real Rejects. You can click that notification bell. Follow John Humphrey on Twitter and Instagram. And go check out our Patreon. Become a Patronaject today. How come on the outro the camera's further away and it's pointing down? Because of these little, end screen things that don't want to cover our face. We think about things now.